As you may know, I am part of a family of people that gets together every Sunday morning in Powhatan, Virginia, near Midlothian, Virginia, Chesterfield, Virginia. All those areas kind of come together, and we have conversations about Jesus, and we talk about the Bible. And here recently, we've been talking a little bit about some politics and how we interact with that as followers of Jesus. So I thought maybe we'd take a couple of minutes today and talk about the other day. I started this conversation with our church family on Sunday morning the other day by reminding them, I love you. And then I reminded them, you love me too. But since this is the internet, I feel like maybe I should remind you of three possibilities. One, I love you, which I do. I'm trying to. You love me, you might. Or you just stumbled across this video and you have no idea who I am, and my opinion doesn't really matter that much, so why should we fight about anything? And I say all of that to say that we kind of got into a little bit of some difficult teaching. Now, we're not taking a political stance. We're not teaching you how to vote. We're not trying to do anything like that. We're just trying to reconcile some of the ways that American politics might push us in a way that would cause us to be in tension with our decision to follow Jesus with our life and devote our life completely to Him. Now that that's out of the way, let's have the conversation a little bit. And I want to start the conversation. Can you see that? Now that that's out of the way, we've decided we're going to be completely civil with each other. Let's talk about a couple of crime traps that innocent people find themselves in. There are two in particular that I think relate a little bit to our interaction with politics. The first one is ad hominem. That's Latin for guilt by association. Now, guilt by association is not a real legal thing. I asked my legal counsel. They said it's not a real thing, but it also isn't not a real thing. It's also a thing that kind of does happen sometimes. Sometimes in our politics, in particular, we get so close in with our party, we identify ourselves so strongly with our candidate, politician, party, that we begin to be identified with them even in the worst parts, right? The thing that happens the most is that not necessarily that we would be considered a Republican, considered a Democrat, considered a Libertarian, but that we would actually be considered to be in the same camp as the biggest jerks in our party. Guilt by association, ad hominem. And we don't want that. We want to be identified as followers of Jesus. We want to be identified as good people with these political views, good people with those political views, followers of Jesus who think that the best possible way to run a nation is with these laws or those laws, with these people in charge or those people in charge, not to be roped in with people that we don't actually consider to be like us. And the other crime trap of the innocent is Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome is what happens when someone is taken captive or taken hostage by a criminal, and they get caught up in the crime that's being done, and eventually they start to side with the criminal, an otherwise innocent person, a person who had nothing to do with what did not wake up that morning and think, I think I'm going to rob a bank today, I think I'm going to do some crimes today, ends up being pulled into criminal activity, ends up being pulled into unsavory activity, and eventually starts to identify with the criminal who pulled them in. And eventually they're, oh, but you've been nice to me. Oh, I like the way that you talk to me. Oh, I like the way that you look at me. Oh, I understand you now. I see the hurt that has caused you to want to commit this crime, and now I want to help you commit this crime. And when it comes to our politics, both of these traps are a really big deal for us. I mean, there are some people in either party that I just don't want to be associated with whatsoever. But a lot of times that's what happens. We do get associated with them. That's part of the problem. We want to be associated with following Jesus, but we get associated with our party instead. So we got to fight against that. And then another thing that happens is we start to see our party or our politician as ours to defend, right? Stockholm Syndrome starts to take over. And then we start taking up for them for doing and saying things that we would never do and we would never say. We cannot let ourselves get so entangled with our party or our politician that we refuse to acknowledge even when they're wrong. We can't lose the ability to call good, even when it's in the other party. And we can't lose the ability to call evil, even when it's in our party. I mean, There have been times, not you, but other people on the internet, where people have defended a politician or a party for doing or saying things that they would never do and they would never say, and that they would consider to be complete disqualifications if the politician or the party on the other side had done or said those things. I know, not you, but other people on another internet. And we do it for a reason, and the reason kind of makes sense, but I'm going to give you some permission today. I'm going to tell you about a right that you have, that you've always had, that maybe you forgot that you had, or maybe you never knew that you had this right. It is the right and maybe the responsibility, if you consider yourself to be a follower of Jesus and you really want what He wants for you and you really want to do what He wants to do, maybe this is also a responsibility, but it's certainly a right to distance yourself from some of the less savory aspects of your party and your politician. We have always had this right. We've always been able to vote, participate in the process, support a candidate, and to also distance ourselves from parts of that candidate that we don't like and that we're not good with and that we don't think jive with Jesus. But we've never used that right, and I don't know why. Let's look at a letter that Paul writes about this to the church. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, he says, "Do not hold back the work of the Holy Spirit, and do not treat prophecy as if it were unimportant." Now, this may seem a little out of place, but we're setting it up to the next thing that he's going to say. But first and foremost, let's talk about this. Do not stop the work of the Holy Spirit in your life. He is basically reminding a church of people God is at work in you, has things He wants you to do, has things He wants you to become, and that is being done through the Holy Spirit's work in you. And He's saying, make sure that whatever you get involved in, whatever you do, you don't hinder that you don't let a party, a politician, some powers that be, some empire to tell you who you are. He's saying, you let the Holy Spirit tell you who you are. And when that comes in conflict with your party, you tell your party, sorry, I might still be with you, but I am surrendered to the work of the Holy Spirit in my life before I'm surrendered to the work of this party in my life. And the second commissioning that he's offering here is don't treat prophecy as if it were unimportant. It's his way of saying, don't leave the Scriptures. Don't leave the prophecy that we have in Jesus shows us what humanity is supposed to look like. He shows us who we truly are. And Paul is saying, don't forbid that. Don't leave that. Don't find yourself in a place where you are identifying with a politician, a party, a candidate, more than you are identifying with the prophecy of Jesus, with Jesus saying, this is how things really are. When we allow ourselves to fall into these crime traps of guilt by association, of Stockholm Syndrome, when we allow ourselves to, we slow the work of the Holy Spirit in our lives. And we often start working for an agenda that is opposite of God's agenda for our lives. And soon enough, we will be choosing party or policy over Jesus. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, well, I don't want that to happen, Drew. I don't want to be caught up in something that hinders the work of the Holy Spirit in my life. I don't want to get to the point where I'm basically ignoring the teachings of Jesus in order to push a political agenda forward. What do I do? Well, Paul goes on. He says in verse 21 of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, test everything, keep what is good, and stay away from everything that is evil. There you go. American Politics for Christians 101. Keep what is good. Stay away from what is evil. Do what is good. Push the agenda that is good. Vote for what is good. Stay away from what is evil. I know, that's really straightforward. You probably want your money back on this. I don't even know where your money went on this. Let's start with holding on to the good. True, I never struggled to hold on to the good. That's what my party is doing. We are holding on to the good. We're keeping the good. That's what we're doing. And I would just suggest to you that the problem with that mindset is often that we begin to associate our party with good to the extent that we lose the ability to even spot good in the other party. We start to want to downplay the good that the other party, the other politicians are doing. We start to want to ignore the parts of our party that really aren't in alignment with the teachings of Jesus, and we want to ignore the parts of the other party that are very much in line with the teachings of Jesus. And I would just say to you, let's hold on to what is good in both parties. No, there's no political line here. There's just good and there's evil. The problem with refusing to acknowledge good in the other party is that eventually you may lose the ability to acknowledge good whatsoever. And you may actually fall into the trap of thinking that your party is always good because they're the ones that define good for you, right? You stop asking, is it good or is it evil? And you start asking, is it Republican or is it Democrat? And if I'm a Republican, then Republican equals good. If I'm a Democrat, then Democrat equals good. If I'm a libertarian, then libertarian equals good. And that's not good. When that happens, we may actually see a politician in our party doing or saying something evil, blatantly evil, that we would never do and we would never say, and we may find ourselves defending them because how could they do anything evil? They're good. They're with us. Which leads us to our next point. We must hold on to what is good and we must reject what is evil. It's like, Drew, that's what I'm doing. That's what me and Fox News are doing. That's what me and MSNBC are doing. We're rejecting the evil. We're calling out the evil in that other party. But I would just challenge you to consider, when is the last time you distanced yourself from your party or your politician because they were standing for what was wrong? When is the last time you distanced yourself from your party or your politician because what they said was not good? When's the last time you found yourself saying something like, I voted for him, I voted for her, but I'm not good with what they're standing for right now? You see, when you defend evil, you're not fighting against the other party. You're fighting against good. You're fighting against God's work. You're fighting against the kingdom of heaven. The longer you defend things that you know are evil for your party or for your candidate, the more you normalize evil in your own heart. American Politics for Christians 101. Hold on to what is good and reject what is evil. The question that we're asking here is not which party is the most Christian. The question that we're asking is, are we willing to put our faith before our politics, even when that means siding with the other side on an issue, even when that means turning against our own politician on an issue? When the dominant question for us becomes, can I put my faith before my politics, we will find ourselves defending what is good, keeping what is good, holding on to what is good, and rejecting what is evil, no matter who's standing for what. Remember, Jesus did not commission us to move any political agenda forward. He commissioned us to love all people, no matter what. That's what this is about. Hope you have a great day. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, we would love it if you did that so you could be a part of our conversations moving forward.